Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and I'm very pleased today because I'm riding a bike that I've been looking forward to riding ever since it was announced a few months back. This is the absolutely amazing BMW GS Adventure with the TFT screen. So this is the 2018 model. A bike that I was intrigued to ride because I've always been such a fan of the GS generally, and I was kind of intrigued as to how things like the TFT screen works alongside the sat-nav and so on. So anyway, stick around and stay tuned. I'll answer that question and lots more besides in this first impressions review of the 2018 BMW GS Adventure. So I'm very lucky today because those nice guys down at Bahnstormer in Maidenhead have let me borrow this bike for the whole day so I can get to know it a little bit, and in particular a little bit later I'm going to do just a specific video just on the new TFT screen because I know that's something that people are very interested in. So I'm not going to talk about the TFT screen a lot other than just in passing on this review. I want to talk about the bike in general because I last rode the GS Adventure about a year ago and they've made quite a few incremental improvements on the bike since I rode it. So things like they've added the sort of second generation dynamic suspension. They've changed some of the way things like the buttons here, look, they're now black which is quite nice. They were grey before, they look good. They've changed some of the riding mode options and bits and pieces like that. So I'm going to talk you through those a bit later when we do the walk around. But for now, let's go through the practical aspects of the bike. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know I'm a huge GS fan. I own the standard BMW GS, a 2014 model, which I've been all over the place on, and I really love the bike. But I'm also a fan of the big KTM adventure bikes. I recently borrowed the KTM Super Adventure for a couple of weeks, so I got to know that bike really well, and that also had the TFT screen. So I think I'm in quite a good position to talk about where this bike kind of fits into the current adventure scene, if you like, towards the top end of the market, if you like, because these bikes are very expensive, it has to be said. And what a lovely day to do it on as well. It's just autumn. Hello sir. And the leaves are just changing. Nice blue sky today. Beautiful day to be out on a bike. But anyway, I digress. So one of the first things that struck me about the GSA, well, the first thing that strikes me about it is just how supremely comfortable it is. The bike is just lovely to ride. I mean, the riding position just feels completely natural to me. I don't know if it's because I'm used to riding a GS and therefore it feels familiar, or whether BMW have just got it right. I think probably the latter. One thing this bike definitely does better than the KTM Super Adventure is comfort on the backside. The KTM is a lovely bike, don't get me wrong, but the seat isn't that comfortable after a long period, whereas this one just feels altogether much softer and nicer. It's a nicer place to be on this bike, I think. The next thing that I notice about the GSA is its handling. Once you're moving, this bike loses all its weight and it handles supremely well. And compared to my GS, which as I say is now, one's a 2014 model year, so what, 3 years old, they've done some nice changes to the engine on the bike and just made it generally a bit smoother. So the big old boxer on this bike, there's no lumpiness or anything like that. There's no rock and roll like you used to get on the pre-liquid cool bikes. It's just a lovely smooth engine with loads of grunt from the moment you open the throttle. This bike is also fitted with the Gearshift Assist Pro, which again has been improved over the years, and it really works really well now. On my particular GS, the Gearshift Assist Pro, a little bit clunky, doesn't really work at low speed so much, but this one works pretty much at all speeds. I have to say it's not as good as on the KTM Super Adventure, the Gearshift, but it's generally a lot better than it used to be on the first iterations of the GS. There's nothing wrong with the Gearshift Assist Pro on this bike now. The weather protection on here is absolutely fantastic as well. On roads like this is a normal B road, 60 mile an hour road, and although I'm getting a little bit of turbulence off the screen, not a terrible amount, but a little bit more than I would like, the bike has such a huge frontal area, it keeps you nicely protected and you're just in a bubble of calm. I imagine if you're riding it in bad weather, rain and so on, it actually would be quite a nice place to be still. For such a big old bike, the handling really is great. the suspension, the clever stuff that BMW have done now with this semi-active suspension, means that no matter what road you're on and no matter what load you've got, the bike adjusts its suspension accordingly, and the thing just hustles if you want it to. The mirrors on the bike work absolutely perfectly well. They're set nice and wide and high, so you've got a great view behind. You sit sort of in the GS as opposed to on it. You feel more part of the bike. Your legs are in a, I suppose for one of these bikes, or one of these styles of bikes, relatively sporty position, in that my knees are at an acute angle. Not hideously so, it's certainly not uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. But it's not, you're not in that position where you feel like you're sitting on an armchair like you would, for example, on a scooter or something like that. They properly resurfaced this road earlier in the year. It's now become a really nice road just to come out on for a half-an-hour blast. But don't tell anyone, or they'll all be coming out here. It's beautiful with these leaves on the turn as well. So to this TFT screen then, it's absolutely enormous, and it's really, really nice. I like the way that BMW have done it. If you watch the rev counter, as I go above the 4 gets bigger. I love the way that the numbers just change as you rev the bike. It's just a little thing, but it's just something that appeals to me. And the screen itself is beautiful and clear. One of the issues I had with the older GS was the fact that the dash on the bike, or instruments on the bike, were just too small to read, or certainly for my bad eyesight as they were, and so I had to invest in the Nav 5, which I've plugged into this bike to show you how that works, just really so I could go to things like that screen, and I could read things like what speed I was doing on the old GS. Well, you don't need to do that now with the TFT screen, because you've got this massive display of your speed, and everything else that you need is there all the time. It's very, very clear, and they've done very clever stuff with the finish of the TFT screen as well. It's not particularly reflective, and nor is the Nav 5, by the way, but you can probably see it. There's more reflection on here than there is on this. This is a very clear screen, possibly the clearest TFT that I've seen yet in terms of lack of reflection. Very clever stuff. It's very nicely laid out as well. As I say, I'll go into more detail on the TFT on a separate video, but I did just want to show you how the two, when you've got both the Nav and the TFT screen, how they both work together using the control wheel, which is the best controller bar none on any motorcycle I've found. It's much better than a joystick, it's much better than buttons to press, it's just much more intuitive. So at the moment, you might be able to see on the TFT, it says here Nav at the top here. There's a little orange bit that says Nav, which means I'm controlling the Nav with the little whiz wheel. You see, I can do all the usual stuff with the Nav as you would normally do, and that operates perfectly fine. If I now decide I want to operate the TFT below, all I do is I go to the menu button here, and I hold the menu button, the top of the menu button. I just hold it, or sorry, the bottom. There we go. I've held the bottom, and now you see this has gone to TFT. So now I'm controlling the TFT screen with the whiz wheel. I can change things on there accordingly. So you need to have no worries about having both the Nav and the TFT screen. The two things operate independently of each other. Just by holding that menu button at the top, you toggle between them. Now the TFT itself does come with a rudimentary sat-nav capability that hooks up to your phone, and I'll talk more about that on the specific TFT video. But for me, if I were going to get one of these bikes, I would still buy the Navigator. It's just a more comprehensive piece of kit for navigation. There's a proper sat-nav. It's got every function and feature you could want on there. Of course, I'm using the old Nav 5 here, which is the one I bought with my GS. Nowadays it's the Nav 6, which has a slightly clearer screen, but I would certainly still go for that option. I mean, you know, you're spending a lot of money if you're going to buy a bike like this. You know, 18, 19 grand by the time you spec it up with all the bits you're going to want. So you may as well spend another 600 on on the Nav. And I think of all the bikes I've ridden, the two together, the TFT screen and the Nav, that is just the best information setup I've ever seen on a motorcycle. It's clear, it's easy to use, pretty intuitive, and I've yet to see a better version of that. Right, so that's all I want to say about the TFT and the Nav at this stage. As I say, stay tuned, there'll be another video on just the TFT screen and its functions at a later date. Right, what I need to do now is find somewhere to stop and just walk around the bike and talk you through the spec, and also just to point out some of the little subtle changes they've made for the 2018 model. Right now I think I'll head up to one of my favourite spots this time of year, Wendover Woods, and see if I can find a little spot there to show you around the bike. Hopefully the trees up there will be looking pretty lovely this time of year. Now, I'm always complaining about the weather here in Blighty, and the fact that you know, it's never particularly hot and we don't get a lot of sunshine. But what we do get here in England are great seasons, and on a nice day like today, autumn, or the fall as our US cousins would call it, is absolutely gorgeous around here. Just check out these trees. What a lovely part of the world. And I must stop moaning about the weather we get, because if it wasn't for the climate here in England, we wouldn't have beautiful views like this to enjoy at this time of year. How fabulous is this? Okay, just up here on the right is the entrance to a place called Wendover Woods, which is a lovely place you can go walking and stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to find a nice little spot in here to do a walk round of this bike and talk you through the specs as they stand for 2018. Just like its smaller brother, the standard GS, the GS Adventure is a great bike to stand up and ride on. The balance is just lovely. The foot pegs are just in the right spot, and when you stand up, your legs go into that narrow part, if you can see what I mean. So it becomes very, very easy to stand up and ride the bike, which of course is what you want if you're off-road. But also if you're doing long journeys, I found on my GS that it's just nice occasionally just to be able to stand up and stretch your legs. Okay, I could stop here and do the walk around. Nice and light. Let's see if we can find somewhere with a bit more trees. This looks like a reasonable spot. About here. Now when you put the brake on here, that's a good demonstration. Let me just put her into neutral. You may see that I've just put the brake on. If I take my hand off now, the bike just stays put, even though I'm on an uphill slope, and you can see that the H has come on the TFT, shows that hill hold control is enabled. A great feature that just makes doing hill starts a lot easier. So again, that's another one of the features that they've added to this bike. Alright, fair enough. Let's get the stand down then. Turn her off. And yeah, show you around this machine. Here she is, lovely, this particular bike in this blue and white paint scheme. One of the things they've done for the 2018 model year is to introduce a few new paint schemes. I think this one looks great with the blue frame as well. Let me get the phone out in the usual way, and I'll talk you through the specs. Here we go. Okay, hopefully I won't get run over as I do this. So here she is then, the 2018 model year BMW GS Adventure. I think she looks absolutely splendid in the new graphic scheme as well. So just talk you through the basic specs. She's got the 1170cc horizontally opposed boxer engine, the liquid cooled one that we've seen on things like the RT and the GS now since, well, back into 2013. Puts out 125 bhp at 7,750 rpm and 125 newton meters of torque at 6,500, which is the thing I love about the engine. It's just got a grunt from very low down and pretty much instantly, so it really is a nice engine, nice and flexible. You can ride it lazily and not have to change gear much, and you know, it just handles all that absolutely fine. Brakes wise, it's got Brembos on the front and back. It's got twin discs at the front here. These are 305mm twin discs with floating calipers, 4-pot Brembos. Work absolutely a treat. On the back it's a single disc, again another Brembo. 2-pot caliper on that one, but again works absolutely fine. Suspension wise, it's got the very clever BMW suspension on the front. It's what they call the telelever suspension, so underneath there you might just be able to see we've got like this wishbone affair that goes onto the spring, which is kind of unique to BMWs. Works really well, and it stops all that fork dive. If you give it a handful of brake, this bike just doesn't dive, which is really nice. On the back, again, it's what I sometimes call funny BMW suspension. It's what they call power lever suspension, and this is all controlled by the semi-active gadgetry. Here we can see the dynamic ESA box of tricks that controls all that, which means it selects the right ride height and also changes the damping for you you on the fly. 50,000 calculations a second it does to give you the smoothest possible ride. Works a treat as well. Seat height on this, 890mm, and you can, that's on its lowest setting. Goes up to 910mm. Let me just open my visor. And you can get a lower seat for it as well, and lowered options as well if you know, you're a shorter person and the height is going to be a problem for you. I'm only 5'8", and I actually find that I can get my feet pretty well, the balls of my feet, both sides on the floor, and don't have a problem with it with the low seat. Fully fueled, she weighs 263 kilograms, so no doubt a heavy old beast when she's fully fueled. And partly she's so heavy because of this massive tank. I mean, just look at the size of that thing. Holds 30 litres, or 30 litres usable, I should say, which is exactly what you want if you're going to be doing, you know, long touring and so on. Electronics, well, there's too much to list really. It comes in various flavours. You can get the most popular one in the UK will be the TE, the Touring Edition, which gives you pretty much everything that you'd want. Things like cruise control, engine modes, complete with off-road modes, Enduro Pro, that sort of thing. It's got the up-down quick shifter that I mentioned earlier. The clever electronic suspension, of course, ABS and traction control, tyre pressure monitoring, that brilliant hill hold assist that I just showed you. The list just goes on and on. I mean, check out the website for full details. You name the electronics, it's got it. Price wise, the BMW website rather cheekily says that it's from 13,400, but you and I both know no one's going to buy a standard BMW GS. So if you buy this in the Adventure version with the TE spec, which gives you most of the things that you're going to want, then you're going to be looking at something closer to 17,120. When I went on the configurator, I spec one of these up and I quickly got it to £18,500. Right, I said I'd mention some of the things that are specifically new for the 2018 model. First off, of course, the Tft Screen, of which more later. We've seen that in action. Big old screen there, doesn't reflect, really, really nice. Something I've noticed is they've changed the switchgear here slightly. It's now black instead of the grey that it was before. I think that looks really nice. We've got these additional handguards on here as well, which look really good. I think they're optional extras. What else have they done? Oh, what they have added is this thing called emergency call. You see this button here, it says SOS. If you flip that up, there's a little button there that calls the emergency services, and there's a little speaker there that actually speak back to you. And if you actually have an off, the bike detects through its various sensors that the bike has crashed, and it will alert the emergency services for you. So that's all very clever stuff. What else has it got? Keyless ignition is new for 2018 for the GSA, I think. There's the sort of barrel that they do on the GS. Never too sure about keyless ignition, but there we go. It's there nonetheless if you want it. It's got the new generation of the active suspension that I talked about. This is what they changed last year, and as I say, it works an absolute treat. The other thing that's worth noting, new auxiliary lights on here. If you have a look at these are now fully LED. I think they might have been halogen before, so that's new for the 2018 model. New colour schemes, as I mentioned, they've not only can you get it in with different accents and so on, like the blue frame we've got here, but you can also get it in an exclusive version and a rally version. I love the rally version. I think if I were going for one, I'd probably go for that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Oh, you can get a triple black as well, and there's a camo option as well, I forgot that. Alright, loads of accessories, of course, you can buy for these, including aftermarket cans and all sorts of stuff, but you can amuse yourself for hours buying aftermarket stuff for the big Beamer. Alright, that's enough chat. Let's gather me gloves, jump back on again, do some more riding. Oh! Right then, let's bring her to life by pressing the on button. Let's watch that Tft screen and she comes to life. Looks pretty fancy, love those graphics. Alright, kill the stand. Now let me just see if the hill hold still works. No, it rolls back now, interesting. In fact, it's flashing now. Look, I wonder if it'll... No, it doesn't, interesting. Okay, just a little test. Right. Nothing coming. Fantastic. What a beautiful day to be out for a ride. Okay, so I know one of the questions that people are going to ask a lot is, you know, out of this and the KTM Super Adventure, another bike I know pretty well, which would I rather have? Well, they are both absolutely brilliant bikes, there's no doubt about it. So to some extent it comes down to personal preference. For me, I think if I had 20 grand burning a hole in my pocket, I'd go for one of these. I'll probably have this in the rally spec. I just think it looks lovely in the rally paint scheme. And you'd want all the extras, so you probably are looking at 20 grand, so it's a very expensive proposition. But it's such a lovely bike. The KTM has definitely an amazing sporty engine, but really that bike, for me, the engine is what it's all about. Everything else about the BMW I think it does better. I think the TFT is actually nicer. Now I've actually seen it in the flesh. And it's certainly a more comfortable bike. I use my GS for touring mainly and long distance riding, and there's no doubt I think that the BMW is the more comfortable bike. I also just prefer the way it looks. I just think it's a more sort of fit for purpose looking bike, but that's just a personal thing, so you have to make your own decision if you're in the market, but that's certainly the way I would go. But who knows, every month now bike manufacturers are bringing out new bikes, and they're just all so flipping good, aren't they? We are surely living in a golden age of motorcycles in all categories, be it, you know, these big adventure bikes or retros or nakeds. There's just so many good bikes to choose from now. Alright, so that's just about it for my first impressions review of the 2018 BMW GS Adventure. I hope that's been of some interest to you, and I hope it's answered some of those basic questions you may have had, particularly about the TFT screen. If you want to know more about that, as I say, stay tuned to the channel. In due course I will be posting another video just talking about the TFT screen. But overall, I think you can tell I absolutely love the bike. It's comfortable, it looks good, it goes well, the suspension is great, the mirrors work well. It's just... There's nothing about this that I don't like. Maybe, you know, if you could shave off 50 kilograms, that would be nice, but you know, when you're moving, the handling is absolutely lovely. The only time it's going to be an issue is when you're sort of manhandling it about on your driveway or whatever. But yeah, a lovely bike, and very much towards the very top of my list of dream bikes, it has to be said. Alright, I hope that's been of some interest to you. If this is the first time that you've been along to the channel, great to have you along. Thanks for sticking around to the end. It'd be brilliant if you want to hit the subscribe button. That way you won't miss any other videos that I make. I don't just do bike reviews, but I also do vlogs, I do trips and tours, I do product reviews, I do maintenance and stuff like that in the garage. Basically, you name it, anything to do with motorcycles, I try and cover it. And it'd be great to have you along. Alright, thanks very much then for watching. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Mr. Fly. Cheerio. Oh, I almost forgot. Here's a little bit, a couple of clips that I took when I was bringing the bike back from the dealer area on some faster roads, just to see how she handled then. So on faster roads and dual carriageways, the big old GS Adventure is just the consummate motorcycle to ride. It's an amazing beast. It's got such a big frontal area that you're lovely and protected from the wind. I would say this screen is not perfect. I've got it on its uppermost setting. I've got a little bit of vibration on my helmet, not too bad though. I think it's it might be something that I would change longer term, but it's not terrible. But my word, as a long range mile muncher, these bikes are absolutely superb. There's no more comfortable place I can think of being on fast long days on the bike than on a BMW GS Adventure. Amazing machine. Even in heavy traffic through town, the big old Beamer is a joy to ride. Once you're moving, all the weight just falls away. And she really does look after you on the road, this bike.